Hello everyone, great to be with you. In this video we are going to talk about ancient computer science, revealed on the Korean flag. We are going to talk about electronics, photonics, sciences from 70,000 years ago or more, crystal skull technology, enormous Mayan numbers. We're in for a great show, so let's get started. And it all begins with the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics at Pyeongchang. And we were watching the ceremony, and I was sitting with my brother, and he was looking at this flag, and I had told him before, and I had mentioned in a previous video that this is a number system in the Korean flag. And he looked at this, and he said, "Oh, that's a binary number system." And I said, "What?" And he said, "That's a binary number system." He said, it is essentially a 3-bit number system which allows 8 possible combinations. And it is called Chinese binary. And if you look at something like this, that represents a 0 and that represents a 1. So what's going on here? Why would they be using binary? And look at this. The 0 is a disconnection. Okay. I don't think they were laying 2 bones out to make a 0. That's a disconnection. So we could be talking electronics. So ancient electronics. A 0 is a disconnect. A 1 is a connect all the way through. So these are like wires laid out. Ancient wire diagrams. And these could have been used in ancient craft. Ancient spaceships. And then we come to I Ching. I Ching is just extraordinary. What they've done is they've doubled up into a 6-bit system with a possible 64 combinations. Otherwise, with the 3-bit system, there were only 8 combinations. And it doesn't look like Space Invaders for no reason. This is a 70,000-year-old piece of computer software. This is just unbelievable. And I do say 70,000 years old. We don't know for sure, but I'm talking pre-Toba, and I'm talking pre-everything, really. Australian Aborigines, about 70,000 years old. Some Bushmen have been in parts of Africa in the same place for about 70,000 years. So something disrupted the world at that time, and I think the Supercivilization was not after that time. There are only scattered remnants, which we will get to. But this could have been the numerical basis of their ancient computer technology, of the ancient supercivilization, and it has survived in Asia, and we'll get to how it survived. I mean, I find this extraordinary. And this whole thing, this is quantum mechanics, synchronicity. The I Ching describes synchronicities which you can't imagine, which you can't believe. But then again, everything describes synchronicities, so we don't know whether it's on purpose or whether they just accidentally came up with this, or what the I Ching is. And it starts with this guy, Dan Gun. They also mentioned this in the opening ceremony. And it's really weird because he was essentially born from a bear woman. The bear woman prayed to become a human. It was an animal becoming a human. And she essentially, after 100 days of staying out of the sunlight, she was able to become a bear woman and gave birth to this man. And if you try and deconstruct that legend, well, that looks like, to me, that looks like a bear head. That's an embryo. And after about 100 days, the embryo turns into a fetus, and it loses its tail, so it becomes more of a human, goes from animal to human. So somehow the ancient science has gotten into the legend of this character, and it's contaminated it. So could there have been an ancient scientific experiment in which they engineered an animal, they even engineered an animal embryo into a human fetus? Because the Bible appears to describe an ancient scientific experiment in which a woman was cloned out of a man. And we're talking ancient super civilizations, and more proof of this is that this legend is not specific. For example, this to Korea. For example, here's the first Korean ruler, and he was a technology god, fertility god. He taught people everything, just like Thoth in Egypt. But of course, there's another Dengun, and his name is Dagon, And he was another technology god, but more of an agriculture god in the Near East. And he's carrying one of those handbags, wristwatches, who knows what these things are. But you have to ask, why the reptile? Why is he half a fish? Why is he a reptilian? Why do so many cultures talk about reptiles coming to Earth, giving us technology? Well, I don't think it is actually reptiles. Well, I think it's more that that is more reptilian, and then it develops into a human. So it's been contaminated with this. But another thing is, if there were ancient space travelers, they were in outer space, it's cold in outer space, and so they're represented as an animal which is used to the cold, a reptile. And then these reptiles come down from heaven, and they mix with the humans, but they are actually humans. And Stone Age people in the intervening period after the great catastrophes, 70,000 years onwards, catastrophe after catastrophe after catastrophe, and the survivors only stayed living in mountains, in huge walled-off cities, keeping to themselves, not mixing with the humans. And we know this is in the Bible. I'm not making this up. It's all in the Bible. And the Mayan numbers are so similar to the I Ching numbers. How did they get so similar? Well, this could have simply been Chinese civilization which fled across the Pacific, or it could have been a relic of a global civilization. And they're very interested in counting up to 4 and then adding a line. In other words, these guys have had contact with the Romans because they've modified this in a Roman-like way. So the Romans must have been one of the Viracochas, and I think they must have built the Kalasasaya Temple in the Tiwanaku area. They must have. And of course, one of the really interesting things about the Mayas, and this is not very well known, is that there are some Mayan numbers written on temples which are ridiculous. Numbers like 34 million days, which corresponds to 34,000 million days, which corresponds to 93 million years. And there's another number which reads 147,420 million days, which corresponds to 403 million years. So there are huge computer-like numbers written on Maya temples, and we don't know why. And of course, this whole binary system, which could have powered ancient computers, could have driven ancient computing technology. It might not even be electronics, it might be photonics, it might be the stuff that's going on in the crystal skull, because you interrupt a beam of light, it's like fiber optics, and you get a 0, because there is no connection. So it could refer to a very high technology indeed, the technology we have only recently discovered ourselves, the stuff that is going on in the crystal skulls, if they are indeed ancient. And what happened to all the ancient giants and their supercivilization? Well, they retreat. Here's what I think happened, and this explains something. Ancient monasteries are found everywhere, all across Eurasia. And it really struck me as weird that you get mountain monasteries in both Europe and Asia, even though the religions are completely different, and the monks shave their heads the same way. What's going on? Well, I think what's going on is the monk religion predates all the existing religions, and it actually dates from the time that the ancient giants fled to the mountains and built huge fortresses for themselves. The monasteries are, of course, the centers of learning, and all the learning would have been kept as a tradition by the survivors of the supercatastrophes in these mountain fortifications. And so what's really going on? Let's put it all together, what we've been saying in the last few videos. And this is something that's going to come out in a book that I'm going to put out hopefully this month. Deconstructing everything. This is the Garden of Eden, but the Garden of Eden, believe it or not, it's actually a spaceship. Yep, it's a spaceship, because if it wasn't a spaceship, Adam could walk back into the garden, and he couldn't. He was expelled from the garden, which provided everything because it was full of provisions. There was a coup. Adam was an angel in heaven, and he was expelled because he's so much like the fallen angel. And what happened was he was essentially ditched on a mountain, according to the apocryphal Book of Adam and Eve, and all the bad children, the children of Cain, who killed Abel, they went off and mixed with the humans, but the good ones stayed on the mountain in the monasteries. And I mentioned in another video, this is Delphi, that Delphi is basically another Sacsayhuaman, but it's in Greece. And of course the Greeks themselves, the ancient Greeks, had a much higher IQ than all the surrounding peoples, because they possibly stemmed from the ancient giants. And they were able to survive and thrive against much larger, numerically superior enemies. And look at that Cyclopean architecture. They stem from this branch. And even Solon mentions this. He says, you come from, he tells the priest Sonkis tells Solon, you come from the most illustrious race there ever was. And they lived in mountains like Mycenae, the Lion Gate. It's all from the ancient giants. All of this, the ancient giants built this when they retreated into the mountains. And another version of the fallen angel story, other than Adam, is Loki. Loki falls down to Earth. He's pinned down by the crashed wreckage of the spacecraft, and there's this hose which is dripping hot hydraulic fluid on him or something, and his wife's trying to rescue him by containing it with a bucket. It's ancient science fiction. And due to the intervening Stone Age, it's been stuffed up. The story has been completely ruined and turned into an animal dripping venom on him, burning him with venom. You can't do that with venom. It doesn't work. And of course, Abel and Cain. So the fallen angel's children, Cain mixed with the humans, and Abel was the good one. He didn't really want to. He wanted to stay with the parents, but that's what happens, you see. And there we go, mountain monasteries. Well, guys, I hope you really enjoyed that video. I found it very interesting. I think that ancient number system does date all the way back, possibly to the ancient giants. What do you think of that? Tell me what you think, and see you next time. Bye-bye.